Nurse saves woman floating in river. But when she discovers who it really was, she panics. Jennifer Parker was returning from her night shift when she heard desperate screams coming from the Hudson River. Without thinking twice, the 42-year-old nurse plunged into the turbulent waters and pulled out an unconscious woman floating downstream. While applying first aid on the muddy bank, Jennifer noticed something familiar in the stranger's face. When the woman opened her eyes and whispered, "I finally found you," the nurse felt her blood run cold. That voice brought back memories she had buried more than 20 years ago. "Who are you?" asked Jennifer, her hands still shaking as she checked the woman's vital signs. "My name is Catherine Wilson," replied the stranger, coughing up river water. "But before, I was Catherine Parker, just like you, Jennifer Parker." Jennifer's heart raced. That surname. How did this woman know her full name? How did she know details she had never told anyone? "You're confused, you hit your head. I need to take you to the hospital," said Jennifer, trying to maintain the professional calm she had learned from years of medical emergencies. "I'm not confused." Catherine grabbed Jennifer's arm with surprising strength. "I spent years looking for you. We grew up together at St. Vincent's home in Rochester. Do you remember Sister Catherine? The dining hall with the blue tiles? The backyard where we played hide and seek?" Catherine's words hit Jennifer like a punch to the stomach. Fragmented memories began to resurface. An orphanage, children running through the halls, a brown-haired girl who always shared her snack with her. "That's impossible," murmured Jennifer. "All the children from there. You were all adopted. I was the only one who stayed until I was 18. "They weren't normal adoptions, Jennifer. I discovered things. Terrible things about what happened to us." Catherine tried to get up, but she was still weak. Jennifer helped her, noticing how her gestures were strangely familiar, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. "You were carrying a bag when I pulled you from the water," said Jennifer, pointing to a waterproof backpack on the bank. "What's in there?" Catherine opened the bag with trembling fingers. From inside, she pulled out laminated documents, old photos, and papers that looked official. The first photo she showed made Jennifer stagger back. "It's the two of us," said Catherine, "at 6 years old, in the orphanage yard. But look closely. There's a third girl in the photo." Jennifer took the photograph with shaking hands. It was indeed the two of them, but there was a third child who looked practically identical to the other two. They all had the same brown eyes, the same serious expression, the same wavy hair. "It can't be," whispered Jennifer. "It can't be true. The three of us are sisters, Jennifer, not just sister, we're triplets." The revelation struck Jennifer like a bolt of lightning. She sat down heavily on the damp earth of the riverbank, trying to process what she had just heard. Triplets? How was that possible? How had she lived 42 years without knowing she had sisters? "The third girl? Where is she?" asked Jennifer, still staring at the photo. "That's the most complicated part," said Catherine, drying her face with the sleeve of her wet shirt. "She was adopted by a wealthy family from New York City. She changed her name. She changed her life. But I found her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "How did you discover all this?" Jennifer wanted to know, still in shock from the revelations. Catherine took a deep breath before answering. "My marriage was falling apart. My husband, Richard, had always been controlling, but in recent years he became obsessive. He monitored everything I did, controlled the money, and wouldn't let me go out alone. When I started therapy, the psychologist suggested I investigate my past to understand some behavioral patterns." Jennifer listened in silence, recognizing in Catherine's demeanor the signs of someone who had suffered a great deal. "I started by doing DNA tests on those genealogy websites, just out of curiosity," Catherine continued. "That's when two perfect matches appeared, biological sisters. One was registered as K. Parker, the other as E. Thompson." "E. Thompson?" repeated Jennifer. "Elizabeth Thompson, that's our third sister's name. She's a businesswoman, owns a construction company. But when I started investigating further, I discovered that neither I, nor you, nor she knew the truth about our past. Catherine showed more documents, certificates, and papers she had obtained through lawyers and private investigators. St. Vincent's Home wasn't just a regular orphanage, Jennifer. They had a scheme to separate siblings to get more donations from the adoptive families. Wealthy families paid more for children who didn't have complicated ties with siblings. Anger began to grow in Jennifer's chest. How could people who were supposed to care for orphaned children be so cruel? They falsified our documents, changed our birth dates so we wouldn't appear to be sisters. You were registered as born in March, me in August, and Elizabeth in December. But in reality, we were all born on the same day, June 15th, 1982. Jennifer felt as if the whole world was crumbling around her. Her birth date, her identity, her history. Was it all a lie? "Why were you in the river?" asked Jennifer, trying to change the subject as she processed the information. Catherine's face contorted in pain. "Richard found out I was investigating my past. He found the documents, the conversations with investigators, everything. He said I was being ungrateful, that I should accept the life we had. When he discovered I had contacted Elizabeth, he became furious." "Did he hurt you?" asked Jennifer, noticing purple marks on Catherine's arms that she had previously attributed to the fall in the river. "Not in the way you're thinking. Richard is too smart for that. He hurts me on the inside. He controls my money, my friends, my family. When he found out about you two, he said that if I tried to find you, he would make sure I never saw our son again." "You have a son?" Jennifer felt a pang of something she couldn't identify. Envy. Sadness. "Matthew. He's 16. He's the only reason I haven't been able to leave this marriage yet. Richard always threatens to take custody away, says he has better lawyers, more money. And he's right." The two women were silent for a few minutes, the sound of the river flowing in the background. Jennifer was trying to absorb all that information when Catherine spoke again. "Last night was the last straw. Richard found out I was planning to come to New York City to look for you. We argued, he broke my phone, locked away the car keys. He said if I left the house, he would file a police report saying I abandoned our son. How did you get here then?" "I waited for him to fall asleep and escaped through the bathroom window. I took a bus from Hartford and came straight to New York City. But I didn't have your exact address. I only knew you worked as a nurse. I spent the whole night looking for hospitals in the area." Jennifer began to understand the situation. "Where were you coming from when you fell into the river?" "From Mount Sinai Hospital. The receptionist said there was a nurse named Jennifer Parker who worked there, but she couldn't give out personal information. I was walking on the bridge trying to think of what to do when I saw you leaving New York Presbyterian Hospital. I followed you for a few blocks until I was sure it was you." "Why didn't you call me?" Catherine lowered her head, ashamed. "How would you have believed me? A crazy stranger saying we're sisters. I was trying to find the courage to approach you when Richard showed up." "He found you?" "Yes, I don't know how, but he arrived in a taxi and started shouting that I was crazy, that I was making a fool of myself. He said that if I didn't go back with him right then, he would take legal action to get full custody of Matthew." Jennifer saw tears in Catherine's eyes and felt an inexplicable connection to that pain. "I said I needed some time, that I would be back in a few days. He got furious, started yelling at me in front of everyone. That's when you turned the corner and I panicked." "Is that why you ran?" "Yes, I didn't want you to witness that humiliation. I ran towards the river, and you know the rest. I tripped on the curb and fell into the water." Jennifer looked at Catherine with a mixture of compassion and anger. Compassion for the terrible situation her possible sister was living through, and anger for everything they had lost because of the orphanage's lies. "We need to talk calmly about all of this," said Jennifer. "But first you need dry clothes and a safe place to stay." "I can't accept your help," protested Catherine. "You don't even know if I'm telling the truth. I could be a con artist, a dangerous person." "You're not," said Jennifer with a conviction she herself didn't expect to have. "I can't explain how, but I feel you're telling the truth. There's something about you that seems familiar." The two women got up from the riverbank. Jennifer helped Catherine gather the scattered documents, and they walked towards Jennifer's car. "Where do you live?" asked Catherine as they got into the vehicle. In a small apartment in Chinatown. It's nothing fancy, but it has a comfortable sofa where you can rest, replied Jennifer, starting the engine. During the drive, Catherine shared more details about her investigation. She had hired a private detective who managed to access the old files from St. Vincent's home. The establishment had closed in 2005 after reports of irregularities, but the documents revealed a clear pattern of intentionally separating siblings. The detective said he found at least 15 cases similar to ours. Twin and triplet siblings who were separated and never knew of each other's existence, explained Catherine. That's inhuman, murmured Jennifer, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The worst part is that many of the children developed psychological problems in adulthood. Depression, anxiety, a constant feeling that something was missing. The detective said it's common in separated twins. Jennifer thought about her own life. She had always felt an inexplicable loneliness, even when surrounded by people. She always had the feeling that there was an emptiness in her heart that nothing could fill. Have you always felt this way? She asked Catherine. As if you were searching for something you didn't know what it was. Always, replied Catherine, looking out the window. My adoptive mother was wonderful. She gave me lots of love. But I always felt like a part of me was lost. They arrived at Jennifer's apartment, a small, organized space with the typical precision of someone who works in healthcare. Catherine took a hot shower, while Jennifer made tea and set out clean clothes. When Catherine came out of the bathroom wearing one of Jennifer's t-shirts, the two looked at each other in the living room mirror and saw similarities they hadn't noticed before. The same eye shape, the same way of tilting their heads, identical gestures. I can no longer ignore the evidence, said Jennifer, sitting down next to Catherine on the sofa. But I need to understand one thing. Why did you come to me first? Why didn't you go straight after Elizabeth? Because Elizabeth lives in a different world than ours, replied Catherine. She is rich, powerful. She has lawyers and security guards. If I approached her without concrete proof, she could make me disappear. You are a nurse, as I imagined you would be, a person who dedicates their life to helping others. I thought you would be more receptive. Jennifer nodded, understanding the logic. And Elizabeth, does she know you exist? The detective said she took the same DNA test I did. She must have seen our correspondence, but she didn't try to make contact. Maybe she's scared, or maybe her life is too good to want to stir up the past. Or maybe she's waiting for one of us to take the initiative, suggested Jennifer. Catherine showed a folder with information about Elizabeth Thompson, photos taken from business magazines, reports about her company, office, and home addresses. She's not married, she has no children. She dedicates her entire life to work. Her company builds high-end residential buildings on the Upper West Side of New York, explained Catherine. She seems like a lonely person, observed Jennifer, looking at the photos. Elizabeth had the same face shape as the two of them, but her way of dressing and carrying herself was completely different. Expensive clothes, confident posture, smiles that seemed more professional than genuine. The detective got some personal information. She goes to the same restaurant on the Upper East Side every Sunday, always alone. She reads books while having lunch, never stays more than an hour. Are you thinking of approaching her there? I was thinking we could approach her together, said Catherine, looking directly into Jennifer's eyes. If she sees two people who look just like her saying they are her sisters, it might be harder to ignore. Jennifer felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement. The idea of having sisters, of having a real family, was something she had wished for her entire life without even knowing it. When do you want to do this? This Sunday. In 3 days, replied Catherine. But first, I need to resolve the situation with Richard. He will be looking for me. As if summoned by the mention of his name, Jennifer's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, answered Jennifer. Do you have my wife there? Said an aggressive male voice on the other end of the line. Jennifer looked at Catherine, who turned pale upon recognizing the voice. Who is speaking? I'm Richard Wilson. My wife ran away from home and I believe she is with you. A neighbor said she saw 2 women who look identical entering your building. I don't know what you're talking about, said Jennifer, trying to stay calm. Listen here, little nurse. Don't meddle in family matters. Catherine is my wife, and the mother of my son. She suffers from psychological problems and has a tendency to invent fanciful stories. If she told you that you are sisters or something like that, know that it's a delusion." Anger began to grow in Jennifer's chest. And if it were true, would that give you the right to control her life? It would give me the right to protect her from people who want to take advantage of her mental fragility. I will come to get my wife in 1 hour. If she is not ready to come back home, I will call my lawyers." "Your lawyers have no power over me," Jennifer retorted. "Not over you, but over her, yes. I can prove that Catherine abandoned our underage son to chase fantasies. No judge would give custody to such an irresponsible mother." The call ended. Catherine was trembling on the sofa. "He will carry out the threat," she said in a low voice. "Richard has money and knows a lot of important people. If he says I'm crazy, that I made up these stories to run away from home, they will believe him." "We're not going to let that happen," said Jennifer with determination. "You don't understand. He has real power. His brother is a judge. His late father-in-law was a prosecutor. If he wants to, he can make me look like an unstable person." Jennifer thought quickly. She needed help, someone who understood legal matters. Suddenly, an idea came to her mind. "Catherine, you said Elizabeth is a wealthy businesswoman, right? She must have good lawyers too. You want to involve Elizabeth in this? I want her to know the truth before Richard invents a distorted version of the facts. If she is our sister, she has the right to know you exist. And if she is as powerful as you say, maybe she can help us." Catherine thought for a few minutes. "We can't wait until Sunday. We have to go to her today." "Do you know where she is now?" "The detective said she often works late at the offices. It's Thursday. She should be there." Jennifer looked at her watch. It was almost 9 in the evening. "Let's go there," Jennifer decided. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The two women dressed quickly and went out to Jennifer's car. The construction company's address was in a commercial building on the Upper East Side. During the drive, Catherine shared more details about what she had discovered about Elizabeth. She lost her adoptive parents in a car accident when she was 22. She inherited a lot of money and used it to start the company. In 15 years, she built an empire, Catherine recounted. She never tried to find out about her biological family. From what the detective found out, no. She always said in interviews that she had no interest in digging up the past, but the DNA test suggests otherwise. They arrived at the commercial building a little after 10 at night. Most of the floors were dark, but on the 20th floor, where the construction company's headquarters were located, some lights were still on. "How do we get up?" asked Catherine. "Let's try to convince the doorman," said Jennifer. The night doorman was a man about 60 years old who was reading a newspaper when they approached. "Good evening. We need to speak with Elizabeth Thompson urgently," said Jennifer, Ms. "Thompson is still working, but it's after business hours. Do you have an appointment?" "It's a family emergency," insisted Catherine. The doorman looked at them carefully, and his expression changed. "Good heavens. Are you Ms. Thompson's twin sisters?" "What do you mean?" asked Jennifer, confused. "You look just like her, exactly alike. Wait here, I'll call upstairs." The doorman picked up the phone and dialed the office number. "Ms. Thompson? Sorry to bother you, but there are 2 young ladies down here who want to speak with you." "Yes, they look just like you. What do you mean you were expecting them?" "I'll send them up then." He hung up the phone and looked at them with a curious expression. "You can go up, 20th floor, suite 2001. Miss Thompson said she was expecting you." In the elevator, Catherine and Jennifer looked at each other in silence. Elizabeth was expecting them? How was that possible? When the elevator doors opened, they saw a woman with her back to them, looking out the office window. Even from behind, the resemblance was undeniable. The same height, the same hair type, the same posture. "Elizabeth!" called Jennifer. The woman turned around, and the 3 of them stood face to face for the first time in over 30 years. The silence was broken by the sound of a sob. Elizabeth was crying. "I knew this day would come," Elizabeth said in a choked voice. "Ever since I took the DNA test and saw I had 2 perfect matches, I knew you would find me." "Why didn't you contact us?" asked Catherine. "Because I was afraid," Elizabeth admitted. "Afraid of finding out that you didn't want to know me. Fear that our meeting would be a disappointment. Fear of reopening wounds that might be better left scarred. Elizabeth invited the two to sit in the luxurious office. She sent for coffee, and they talked until the early hours of the morning. Each one told her version of life after the orphanage, their struggles, their triumphs, their losses. "Did you always feel like something was missing?" asked Elizabeth. "Always," replied Jennifer and Catherine in unison. "Me too. That's why I worked so much. I thought if I built enough buildings, if I made enough money, this feeling of emptiness would go away. But it never did." Elizabeth showed the two sisters the results of the DNA test she had taken. It not only confirmed they were sisters, but also revealed details about their ancestry and possible living relatives. "There's one more thing you need to know," said Elizabeth hesitantly. "I hired private investigators. As soon as I saw the DNA results, I discovered not only the history of the orphanage but also found our birth mother." "Is she alive?" asked Jennifer, hardly able to believe it. "She is. Her name is Rose Parker. She lives in a senior home in Rochester. She's 68 years old and has senile dementia." The revelation hit the three women like a bombshell. Their birth mother was alive but perhaps couldn't recognize them or tell her version of the story. "Were the investigators able to speak with her?" Christina wanted to know. "They were. She has moments of lucidity. She said she was a mother at 15, that she was pressured by her family and the church to give up her daughters. She said she tried to visit them at the orphanage a few times, but the nuns wouldn't allow it." "Does she know we're triplets?" "She does. And she said something that sent chills down my spine." Elizabeth stopped, as if gathering courage. "She said that every night she dreams of 3 little girls running in a garden, but she can never reach them." The three sisters fell silent, processing the information. Their birth mother had spent over 40 years dreaming of them. "We need to go see her," said Jennifer. "I think the same thing," agreed Elizabeth. "But first we need to solve the problem with Catherine's husband." Elizabeth had already heard the whole story about Richard and his threats. As an experienced businesswoman, she knew the games of power and intimidation well. "I have lawyers who specialize in family matters. I can assure you he will not succeed in taking custody of your son using false arguments," Elizabeth assured Catherine. "But he has influence. He knows important people." "So do I," said Elizabeth with a smile that mixed sweetness and determination. "And my influence is built on honest business and relationships of mutual respect. His is based on intimidation and control." Elizabeth picked up the phone and made some calls, even though it was the middle of the night. In less than an hour, she had arranged a meeting with one of the best family lawyers in New York City for the next day. "Catherine, you will go back home tomorrow, but not alone. My lawyer is going with you. You will have a civilized conversation with Richard and establish the terms of the separation in a way that protects you and your son." "I can't afford an expensive lawyer," protested Catherine. "You won't pay anything," said Elizabeth. "We are sisters. Family takes care of family." It was the first time anyone had said those words to Catherine and Jennifer. Family takes care of family. The two began to cry. The next morning, the plan was set in motion. Elizabeth knew people in the family court, where Richard might try to sue Catherine. She discovered that he did indeed have some acquaintances, but nothing that could be used illegally. Elizabeth's lawyer, Dr. Robert Stevens, was a man experienced in cases of psychological domestic violence. He explained to Catherine that Richard's controlling behavior constituted emotional abuse and that this strengthened her position in a potential custody dispute. "Your husband is betting that you're afraid to confront him legally. But he didn't expect you to have powerful sisters willing to help," explained Dr. Robert. Catherine, accompanied by her lawyer, returned to Hartford in the late afternoon. Elizabeth and Jennifer stayed in New York City, anxious for news. "Do you think she'll be able to get rid of him?" asked Jennifer. "I'm sure of it. Richard is a cowardly bully. When he realizes Catherine is no longer alone, he'll back down," Elizabeth replied confidently. While they waited for news from Catherine, Elizabeth showed Jennifer the construction company offices and told her about her projects. Jennifer was impressed with her sister's determination and success, but she also noticed a deep loneliness behind all that achievement. "Did you never want to have a family?" asked Jennifer as they had coffee in the conference room. "I always did, but I never found someone who made me feel complete. Now I understand why. I was looking for you two without knowing it." "And now? What will change in your life?" "Everything," Elizabeth replied without hesitation. "I don't want to live just for work anymore. I want to meet my nephew. I want to help you both. I want to visit our mother. I want to have a real family." Elizabeth's phone rang. It was Catherine. "How did it go?" asked Elizabeth, putting it on speakerphone so Jennifer could also hear. "Better than I expected," said Catherine, with evident relief in her voice. "When Richard saw Dr. Robert with me, he understood the situation had changed. The lawyer explained that attempts to blackmail or intimidate could result in total loss of custody and even criminal charges." "And your son?" "Matthew was by my side the whole time. He said he already knew his father was controlling and that he wanted to live with me. Richard had no choice but to accept the separation on the terms we proposed." "What terms?" "Shared custody, but with Matthew living with me. Richard can visit him whenever he wants, as long as it's in a civilized environment. And most importantly, he agreed to pay adequate child support and will not contest the divorce." Elizabeth and Jennifer hugged, celebrating their sister's victory. "When are you coming to New York City?" asked Jennifer. "Tomorrow. Matthew wants to meet his aunts, and the three of us need to take a trip to Rochester." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On Saturday, Catherine arrived in New York City, accompanied by Matthew, a 16-year-old boy who was a perfect blend of the Parker family features. He was fascinated to meet the aunts he never knew existed. "Mom, you're identical," said Matthew, comparing the three women. "How did you go so long without knowing each other?" Catherine explained the story to her son, who was outraged by the injustice they had suffered. "That's a crime. Separating siblings on purpose should land you in jail," said the young man. "It very well could," replied Elizabeth. "I'm thinking of suing the state for negligence, not for the damages to the three of us, but to prevent other families from going through the same thing." "First, let's settle our own pending matters," said Jennifer. "Tomorrow we're going to visit our mother." On Sunday morning, the three sisters set off for Rochester. Matthew stayed in New York City, saying that first meeting should be just for the three of them. During the trip, they talked about their expectations and fears. "What if she doesn't recognize us?" asked Catherine. "What if she does recognize us and is sad that we lost so much time?" countered Jennifer. "What if she blames us for not looking for her sooner?" added Elizabeth. "I think we should be prepared for any reaction," said Elizabeth. "The important thing is that she knows we never stopped existing for her, even without knowing. St. Francis Senior Home was a simple but well-kept institution. The director, Mrs. Margaret, received them personally after Elizabeth explained the situation. "Rose will be so happy," said Mrs. Margaret with tears in her eyes. "She always spoke of her three daughters. Some people thought it was a delusion from the dementia, but I always believed it was true." "How is she today?" asked Jennifer. "Today is a good day. She's lucid and in good spirits, but I must warn you, she might not initially understand that you are adults. Sometimes she thinks we are all still young." Mrs. Margaret led them to an internal garden where Rose Parker was sitting in a rocking chair, feeding birds with breadcrumbs. "Rose, you have visitors, Mrs." Margaret announced softly. The elderly woman looked up and her face transformed. She dropped the bread and brought her hands to her chest. "My girls," she whispered. "You've grown so much." The three sisters approached slowly, not wanting to startle their mother. Rose got up from the chair and studied them one by one. Jennifer, always so responsible. Catherine, always so determined. Elizabeth, always so independent, she said, calling each by their correct name. "You remember us?" asked Jennifer, moved. "How could I forget? You are pieces of my heart," replied Rose, extending her arms. The four women hugged in the middle of the garden, crying and laughing at the same time. Rose told her version of the story, how she was forced by her family to give up her daughters, how she tried to visit them at the orphanage, how she never stopped searching for them. I was pregnant and alone. My family said that if I kept all three of you, we would all starve. The priest said it was better for you to have families who could give you an education and opportunities, told Rose. You were just a child yourself, said Elizabeth. You had no choice. But I always regretted it. Always. When I managed to save some money and went to look for you at the orphanage, they said you had been adopted, that it was better for me not to stir things up, that you had new lives. We never stopped being your daughters, said Catherine, holding her mother's hand. Rose showed them a small notebook where she wrote down everything she could remember about her daughter's first months of life, how each one had different characteristics since they were babies, how Jennifer was the calmest, Catherine the most restless, and Elizabeth the most observant. You used to sleep in the same crib because it was the only way to get you to stop crying, told Rose. When they separated you, you would be restless all night. That's why we always felt incomplete, murmured Elizabeth. They spent the entire afternoon in the garden making up for 40 years of longing. Rose wanted to know everything about her daughters' lives, their professions, their dreams, their achievements. You became wonderful women, said Rose with pride. A lifesaver, a fighter for justice, a builder of dreams. I did the right thing by letting you have opportunities. But we lost precious years together, lamented Jennifer. We didn't lose them, we gained a future ahead of us, corrected Rose. Now that you've found each other, you can build the family you were always meant to be. In the late afternoon, the three sisters said goodbye to their mother with a promise to return the following week. Rose would move to New York City, to a home near where they would live. I have a big empty house, said Elizabeth. There's room for all of us if you want. You would really be willing to share your house with us? Asked Catherine. It wouldn't be sharing. It would finally be filling it with the family I always wanted to have, replied Elizabeth. On the way back to New York City, the three of them planned what their life together would be like. Catherine and Matthew would move into Elizabeth's house. Jennifer would sell her apartment and do the same. Rose would come to live with them as soon as they could get everything organized. And work? Asked Jennifer. I don't want to be supported by you, Elizabeth. I was thinking about that, said Elizabeth. How about we open a community clinic? You as the head nurse, Catherine handling the administrative part, and I'll provide the funding and handle the business management. A clinic that serves people in need? Asked Catherine. Exactly. We could focus on maternal and child health care, helping young mothers who are going through the same difficulties our mother went through. The idea excited the three of them. It would be a way to turn the pain they had suffered into something positive for other families. In the following months, the plan was put into action. Elizabeth bought a building in East Harlem and renovated it to house the clinic. Jennifer took specialization courses in maternal and child health. Catherine studied hospital management. Rose moved to New York City and began helping with therapeutic activities for the patients. The Parker Sisters Clinic opened 6 months after the meeting at the river. On its first day of operation, there was a line of over 100 women waiting for care. Did you see how we made a difference? Said Jennifer, looking at the activity in the clinic. And this is just the beginning, replied Elizabeth. I want to expand to other cities. I want to create a project to reunite families that were separated like ours, added Catherine. And I want to live to see my grandchildren grow up together as a united family, said Rose, who had regained much of her lucidity after reconnecting with her daughters. A year later, the clinic had already served more than 5,000 women. Catherine's family reunification project had brought together 12 families that had been improperly separated. Elizabeth opened 2 new clinics in Hartford and Rochester. Matthew, who now lived in a house full of aunts who adored him, had chosen to study medicine to follow the family legacy of caring for people. Aunt Jennifer, will you teach me how to do first aid? He asked during a Sunday lunch. Why do you want to learn? Because when I'm a doctor, I want to be like you. I want to save people. You're already saving us, said Jennifer, hugging her nephew. You saved us when you brought your mother back to us. On a special Sunday, 2 years after the meeting at the river, the 4 women of the Parker family returned to the riverbank where it all began. Not to remember the pain, but to celebrate the rebirth. "Do you know what I think is the most amazing thing about this whole story?" said Rose, sitting in a chair her daughters had brought for her. "What?" the three asked at the same time. "It's that the river that almost took you away from each other was the same one that brought you back together." Elizabeth, Catherine, and Jennifer looked at each other and smiled. They had lost 40 years of living together, but they gained the rest of their lives to be the family they were always destined to be. At the end of that special evening, as they watched the Delaware River flow calmly, Jennifer made a reflection that summed up everything they had experienced. Sometimes life separates us so that we can appreciate the moment of reuniting even more. What matters is not the time we lost, but the love we never stopped feeling, even without knowing it existed. Catherine was holding Matthew's hand, Elizabeth was hugging Rose, and Jennifer smiled seeing her family reunited. The river kept flowing, but now it represented not separation but union, not pain but healing, not an end, but a new beginning. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of reunion and overcoming? Do you believe that the love between siblings is stronger than time and distance? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us if you have ever experienced a family reunion situation. Don't forget to leave your like and especially subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories.